I'm here with Anne Laure Jackson. You can tell by my voice, it's a little bit strained. And we saw each other at the festival, Big Church Festival 2024.
Hey, the church festival, my first ever experience of a festival of that size. Amazing.
My first ever festival, really, since Greenbelt in the 80s, 90s, which goes back a while.
Doesn't it just?
But it was good fun. So I thought it might be good today to look a little bit at sensory overload of a festival and things like toilets, let's go there, and things that maybe are good sensory overload. So here's where I wanted to start. So we went to see LZ7 in what they call the Illuminate stage, which is a bit of a smaller stage. It's not the bigger one. And there's music playing and they've got a bass going, and the bass is kind of making your stomach do stuff. And you can feel it in your heart and you can feel it in your stomach. Now, some people were much further away. It was very loud, which makes me very happy. But why does the bass make it feel as though your heart is now being controlled by something that's not you? What's going on with the senses there?
Oh, utterly, absolutely. Vibration, because the way that the sound travels through air and it's all vibrations. And there are certain frequencies that really touch the body. So with a lot of the auditory training work that I do, we also have, where we can, for those who need that, there is a deeper frequency, which is basically the bass that hits the body. If you have higher bass going through your ears, it stimulates the vestibular nuclei in the brainstem, and therefore can affect all the good things that we love with our vestibular system, which generally is our movement and gravity and position system. But it really helps us be aware of our direction of movement and being able to use the body, two hands together. We call it bilateral integration. There are loads of things that the vestibular system is used for, and vibration is one of those things that can be used to infiltrate the brain into the vestibular nuclei inside the brain. But when it hits the body, we are using the tactile and proprioceptive systems. So you really do, your whole body, absolutely, the waves go almost through you, which some absolutely love. And especially our teenage boys, when they are in growth spurts, they really have that, turning the bass up high really impacts the body, and it makes them feel good. It makes them feel where their bodies are and what they're doing. So a lot of the bass, absolutely, literally, is going through and stimulating those proprioceptive receptors to tell our body where we are, its joints, its muscles, and, you know, going through to interoceptors when it goes right the way through the body, if it's that loud, if it's that intense. And there are absolutely some people who would need to avoid that like the plague. That would be very frightening, very scary, really unhelpful, very dysregulating. And then you've probably got those who are in the middle jumping about and just having a ball, because it really hits their sensory systems in a way that makes them feel good.
Yeah, I felt it through my feet. It sort of came up from the floor. There were some people who were very much in the front in the mosh pit. There were people who were much further back, 100 yards back, and still enjoying it. But I was enjoying it because it's LZ7, right? It's amazing. But at the same time thinking, what are the senses going on here? What's going on? Because Jojo started dancing. There were people, she likes to dance, but there were other people who you could tell were just standing there. Yes, I am watching. I'm taking it in. And then the foot starts to move and the body starts to move. And then because he's very good at what he does, the whole crowd starts jumping as one. And it was, I don't know, it's really hard to describe the sense of several hundred people just jumping up and down to a beat. There's like it's a sensory overload, but it felt like a good sensory overload. Is that a thing? Can that be possible?
In clinical terms, we would never put those two words together, good and overload, just because of the sense of overload. But there is definitely amazing, good, phenomenal, high threshold. We talk about, in the clinical world, we talk about thresholds, and people have different thresholds of what they can cope with. Now, for our high threshold people, they want a high intensity of input, and we look at how long they want it for, when they want it, how often they want it during the day. And so clinically, we look at all of that stuff. So overload, the fact that it's an over, high loading is perhaps a new word we could phrase, that we are high loaders of sensory input. Sensory seeker, sensory craving is another one of our technical terms, who really do seek and who will want an awful lot, a high intensity. They have a high threshold in order to meet that threshold before they can feel good and they start to get calm or content or coordinated. All of those things that I call sensory health. So, but I think visually, there's a synergy. It's something, there's a sense of belonging. There is a community. It's a connection when everybody is doing the same thing. I recorded some video where the hands were being moved together, and it's the same thing. There is a power in that unity. There is power in unity. Unity is a remarkable thing. And when you get other humans doing the same thing, the same movements, it's an emotional bonding. It's a visual bonding. There's a beautiful sense of unity, regardless of what you're doing, as long as you're all doing it together.
It was stunning. I looked at Peter, the only person he wanted to see for the whole festival, 26,000 people, all the different bands. I just want to see LZ7 do what he does. And he went to 3 concerts in the end. And I looked at him after about 5 minutes of the concert that I got to go and see, and it was just this big grin. It was just, it's elation, content, joy, happiness, all wrapped up into one smile, because the lights, the sound, the bass, the jumping, all of that, like you say, that unity. It was amazing to actually experience that. I haven't been to see live music for so long.
Right.
I've forgotten how much I enjoy it. But yeah, sensory overload. That's why I'm not the occupational therapist, but the radio presenter. So yeah, sensory craving. That makes sense.
And that's where it's kind of like, because I'm always wanting to help people flourish and thrive in life. That craving is more on the extremes. And it's when we hit those extremes that it's not so helpful. That's when we really ought to get into a form of therapy. And actually, I'm pretty sure that the festivals, as far as, because I'm always looking at sensory diets being, how can we find everyday activities that are going to meet your sensory needs? And so we can find the right types of activities 24/7. And actually those who have perhaps that intensity of the lights, the sounds, the movements, vibration for sure, then festivals are going to be a big part of their sensory diet of right the way through the summer, or whenever the festivals happen, or just even in their own environments. But that's going to be a problem with the neighbours if they turn the music up high, unless they go and find somewhere rural to do that. But that is an important part, definitely, of some people's sensory diet.
I was thinking about some of the sensory stuff because I saw a few children who were walking around with the big, one girl with pink, quite cool looking pink headphone things, earphones, ear defenders actually. But there was a quieter area that I went to when I went to see somebody, and we met up, and it was much quieter, much calmer, and there were trees and there was very little music. It was actually quite a perfect setting.
Where was that? I would have liked to have found that.
On the way to the garden stage, there was this beautiful walk up, and it was breathtaking as you got closer to the big house. I think it's Whiston House. It was just seeing some of the children with ear defenders and thinking the festival's very loud, and that the stage I finally got to was very loud as well, eventually, because there was a band on. But I thought about some of the most extremes of loudness. So we were probably about a mile away from the main venue, up a hill, over the top. I couldn't even see the main stage. And yet when people like Wren Collective were playing, or Chris Tomlin and Martin Smith were doing their God's Great Dance Floor combo, I saw it on a screen in the cafe, and then I could hear the crowd. And I don't know, I was just smiling, thinking, I can't even see the real Chris Tomlin. I'm seeing a video, hearing the crowd with like a 3-second delay or whatever. And I just had this smile, and I thought, what's going on there with the senses? I really did that. I had that thought. I thought, I've got to ask you, what's going on that made me smile, even though I'm not actually part directly of the crowd?
I'm going to go first with something slightly different, because it's not sensory. I think that sense of that, there was a real spiritual belonging there that I think was a profound. And I think knowing that there are thousands of people uniting again, coming together, and hearing how other people are sharing that experience. But because there's a sense of that shared experience, visually you could see what was going on. There was a visual connection. We know anything that comes in visually is tremendously powerful for feeling belonging, and hearing it. Yeah, the sound delay is a bit weird. But just it was all immersive. And when we think about sensory processing, there are some people that really thrive on the fullness. So as many of those senses as possible, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the music, the movement, the body involvement. Some people will just are so happy. There is a contentment when all the senses are being fed. And that's beautiful. And then there are others who definitely, by being in the cafe area, it just would have been too much to have the full experience of the atmosphere, because atmospheres change when people are together. Again, it's the vibrations of what happens in that space are very different. When you're removed from that, you can control the sights better. You can control the auditory input better. So I would imagine there definitely were some people in the cafe area because the intensity of the sensory input will have been less. But yeah, very immersive, and that there's a real power for most people who love the fullness of all the senses being touched.
So at the end of the Chris Tomlin set, there were fireworks that I didn't expect, and we all kind of rushed out to have a look at. Again, I was in the cafe at the time, serving in there, and I cried when the fireworks started. And again, I thought, what's going on? Because I like fireworks. I've never cried at fireworks before. I wasn't that tired that I'm just crying for no reason. And yet I'd enjoyed the crowd plus the screen, and knowing that, Martin Smith, Chris Tomlin are doing a song they wrote, which is an amazing song, God's Great Dance Floor. And then the fireworks began, and people around me as well, it's the same reaction. It was interesting. We also looked, stopped, stared. Cameras came out immediately because we want to capture this. And it was breathtaking. It was an amazing firework display. I've never cried at fireworks before, but of course that's the culmination. But somehow fireworks with the lights and explosions was an emotional response.
Yeah. And it's so amazing. Just something so simple, and yet we're not being physically touched. We're not being. All it is, it's lights in the sky. Why should that affect us so much? But I think partly the unexpected, and because it's beautiful, the whole reason why fireworks are designed to stimulate the eyes in a beautiful way. And then we appreciate creativity. We appreciate things coming out of nothing, and they come and they disappear, and those beautiful colors, and then you get like lots of them going off all at the same time, and it's just a feast for the eyes. Beautiful input. And those are things I think we are created to really appreciate beauty, and the culmination of a beautiful spiritual atmosphere, and people being kind with one another, and being good, and being considerate. And there's warm cups of coffee, and there's sweet things to eat, and you're just in this environment, and you're in this environment of worship, and it's a beautiful culmination. But yeah, having unexpected fireworks to finish something off with the intensity of a weekend like that is quite something.
Okay, so here's another one. There's a couple of very different sensory reactions that I was a part of. So because I was welcome and a greeter, and I was, had lanyard on, people would come and have their problem and how can I fix it? And some of them I did try and help. It's kind of what we're supposed to do. Two people, totally different times. Both lost their mobile phone for quite a number of hours. One person panicking, flapping, really anxious, really stressed, very visibly, very obviously. And another person, and she was upset that she'd lost her phone because how am I going to get home? I've got contacts there. I've got meetings tomorrow. How am I going to get hold of people? And utterly peaceful. And the only difference I saw between the two was that this lady I met, I prayed, I've got peace. I'm leaving it with God. If I lose it, fine. That's up to God. And there was a bloke who was absolutely apoplectic with anxiety and stress. And I said, we need to pray. Oh, I haven't done that. And I think there was an interesting reaction in what I could see of these two individuals, one who prayed, one who didn't, because she felt peaceful. Same problem, lost a phone. And yet this guy hadn't prayed yet, and he was really anxious. And it was quite striking because they were like a day apart for me when I met these two people. But I was thinking about the senses of the person that prayed, feeling peace, the person that didn't feel peace. And that, I mean, there's spirituality in there, but there's physical in there as well, because that's a physical reaction to an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. We in our field would call it arousal levels. Others would just call it, yeah, they're stressed. And that's fine. But the arousal that comes from having the recognition of the impact, the emotional impact of those things, they're not directly sensory, but they feed into our neurophysiology for what it does to us. And I think that the reassurance of a word, the reassurance of prayer, but it's also the spoken tone of voice that comes when someone's prepared to pray for you, when someone is prepared to be calm. It doesn't take away the impact of what that loss could mean. I lost my phone once as well. I understand that. Ooh, what floods your system when you suddenly realize, yes, all my appointments, all my contacts, all my everything. And this was in a school, and I didn't expect in this particular school that it would be returned. I thought, oh, someone's going to help themselves to my phone. That was just the way it was. But if you're in an environment like that and you recognize arousal levels, the stress, the adrenaline, the cortisol, everything gets fired off. There is something really powerful in using the senses to help regulate, to help bring them down. Now, it was lovely that that lady was able to use that spiritual sense to bring in that peace and that calm, and recognizing that actually this is totally out of my control, and that she was able to regulate and bring her arousal levels, bring the neurochemistry down to be copeable, if that's a word. Whereas it needed for the other gen a little bit of external support, and that's where it's co-regulation that we talk about. You're using someone else to help you get to that point of regulation, and that would have been the power of just your presence, a calming voice, maybe even a touch, a reassurance, that deep touch pressure on a shoulder, to help ground somebody and just settle them, to help them, just recognize that there's nothing extra that they personally can do at this moment in time, out with what would be the typical of what you normally do if you've lost something. But yeah, using the senses to regulate is really powerful, even if things haven't been set off because of a sensory reason. The loss of a phone, that's not a sensory thing, but the impact of it and the way of helping bring regulation and peace and calm back into that, we can use sensory strategies within that too.
Because it's a physical loss, but then there's a physiological, emotional, mental response to that. And it was interesting because she said very clearly, I wasn't okay, but I surrendered it and thought, well, it's gone. If I get it back, that'd be great. If I don't, it's going to cause me no end of problems. But she'd already accepted that quite potentially that's gone. So she's now dealing with the loss rather than I don't want to accept that it's gone. Whereas the chap was still very much, I have to have my phone. I must have it. I don't know where it is. And he hadn't, accepted the possibility of it having gone. So I'm thinking about some of the previous sensory chats where we talk about you need to prepare. You need to accept what is. You can't, go where you need to know where you are in order to get where you want to get to. And she'd already arrived at, well, I really hope I can find it, but I haven't got it. So yeah, let's see what happens.
And I think there's a power in that surrendering of any circumstances, any relationships, any family members that you have. It is what it is. Trying to fight that situation, trying to fight through the disappointment and the annoyance of life the way that it is. The sooner people can work through that, the better, because it will set us off naturally. It's bound to. We're human. We want things to go well. We want life to be easy. We want the best for us and we want the best for others. And when that doesn't happen, all of that stuff is out of our control. It's like the sooner folks can surrender and get to that place of peace, the better. So I was recognizing, I came back and knowing that there's the potential to go to another festival next year, or maybe we'll see how things go. But recognizing that could my husband with his MS and multiple sclerosis and his visual impairment, is that something that he could cope with there? And what would I feel like to go back without him being there? And all the questions and all the thoughts that come in there. And there was a sense of, actually, I can't make this decision on my own anyway. It would have to be a joint decision, and it would be a joint decision that we would come to terms with and accept. If I came, it would be without him again, because actually the accessibility issues and we'd have to do things completely differently if he was to come too. And surrendering and recognizing and not fighting where you're at and who you're at with a family member, a child who's will just run off. That's the other thing. If you're at a festival, you really do not want a runner to be in that environment. That's going to be really, really hard, especially when you've got fields where they could go everywhere. And there are certain things that you just have to accept that actually, maybe festival life isn't just, it's going to be one of those experiences that we don't have as a family. But actually, we can go and we can hire out a small room and have a fun family time doing something different. And it's trying to find those positives. What can you do at each moment in time with your family and their needs, or with those that you love and those that you want to spend time with?
What I was thinking actually was, if we thought of the main stage of the festival as the family gathering, the Christmas, the Easter, the wedding, if that's the thing, then there are various places we can go to. It may be right at the front where you're jumping and you have to jump because everybody's jumping. That could be really immersing the family. But you can also stand half a mile away and you can look at it from a distance, and you can have conversations with people without having to shout. Because literally you're going to have to shout, or probably not even bother if you're that close. But you can walk away. But if the main stage is the central part of the family, let's call it the lounge at Christmas or something, then actually there's other rooms. There's the kitchen. There's fields around. There's places you can go to. To think of it in those contexts, that you don't have to be right at the very front. You can still be part of it without having to be right at the center. Because then you've got degrees of how much you can cope with. So, like you were saying, you could actually have the experience of the festival without ever going off the top hill. You can just stay at the top, and you've still got the atmosphere. You can still enjoy. You can watch stuff, but you're far more. And I suppose this is the thing, isn't it? You're far more in control of enjoyment if you're not right centered. I mean, remember, that's what you love. I didn't go into the mosh pit with LZ7 because I didn't want to have to jump up and down, but I was just behind. But actually, I still enjoyed it. But I was nearly at the front, but I was, maybe 50 foot, not 20 foot away. But we can sort of come back a bit, and we can still be part of it, can't we?
And I think that's where we find what is our level of enjoyment. Because I think some people, if they had been further back, they would have felt left out because they weren't actually in it. But if you recognize, actually, that's really not going to be fun for me, jumping up and down and getting all hot and sweaty, and who knows who's going to touch me and bump into me and all the rest of it. It's just like, oh no, I really wouldn't enjoy being there. But actually being further on the outskirts is a really happy place. And it's like, and that's okay. It's find your happy place, whatever works for you. I was thinking that actually when the fireworks went off and they were loud. So automatically there was me going, oh, there's children trying to sleep. And what about this? And I thought, well, actually we have got, I saw loads of ear defenders around. It's just like, oh, that is so good that it's becoming much more typical for people to have that, so that folks that need ear defenders, hopefully the more and more and the longer this goes on, will feel so, people won't even bat an eyelid if folks have got ear defenders. They're not special anymore. They're not different. They're just everyday, part of everyday life, which actually they really are becoming year on year. Especially how cool it is to have the big ones on, and the different colours and the fluffy ones and all the different things that are coming out now. But the sense of those who were in the cafe were away from the intensity of being right underneath the fireworks. So it's find your happy place. And hopefully if you are in that happy place, then there isn't that sense of, oh, I'm missing out, or I wish I could join them and I wish I could do that. If we can change people's mindsets to be calm and content and satisfied with where they're at, then that's precious. That's really, really, really lovely.
I guess just like that family Christmas Day thing again, you manage expectations. If you're going to go into the festival, the reality is you're not going to have good sleep because it's not going to be beautifully quiet. It may be in a idyllic setting, but there's going to be noise. So you have to go in with that expectation that there is going to be lots of noise. I cannot expect to have moments of calm and peace. I need to go very, very far away. In the same context, the Christmas lounge moment, you can't go into that and expect that people are going to get on and it's going to be all lovely and quiet and calm the way you want it to be. Because now you're surrounded by groups of other people that have all got their ways of doing things. And there needs to be an acceptance before you arrive. Well, I'm going to be out of control of all these things.
Mm.
So you find the thing that you can, to regulate yourself and all that sort of stuff, controlling what you can control, but being prepared for it so that you don't go, oh, there's noise. How dare they? Well, it's a festival.
Mm.
If you've come expecting peace and quiet, then you're in the wrong place. And I did read or see a couple of things, and I thought, you're in the wrong venue. If that's your issue, then you are one of 26,000 people who is in the wrong, because no, it's not going to be quiet. And that's a really dumb idea.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's it. Just take control, take responsibility of what you are putting yourself into, and what you are allowing yourself, and suss things out. Think beforehand. Go through all the senses and think what is the impact of this? Because I also didn't realize the amount of time that I would be on my feet.
Mm.
And I thought for those who it's quite a lot who don't have that postural stamina, they might have a sensory-based motor issue, the stamina to be able to do things, postural control to stand upright. There was a lot of demand, and if you're there at a festival, at a concert, unless you do have a chair with you, there's an awful lot of standing. And it's factoring those things with someone who is not a festival goer. I don't know about these things. That was one of the things that struck me, thinking, oh, there is an awful lot of time on your feet. Great for fitness levels, but wouldn't be great for some people.
Right, let's go to the toilets just for a moment, because the camp toilets, it's a very hot day. So there are the normal smells of a camp toilet. When it's completely clean, immaculate, and it's ready to go, there is a definite different sort of a smell. And this is when it's in a good place, before anybody's used it for anything. How can we best process the smells, being a little bit graphic on radio, the sight when the toilet hasn't been emptied perhaps as quickly as it should have been, or somebody hasn't been as clean as they perhaps could have been? How do we best prepare ourselves in terms of sensory health for that?
That is a very big
And go.
The smell was quite overpowering, I have to say, and it's a very particular type of smell with the types of chemicals that we use to mask traditional toileting smells that we would be aware of. So I'll never forget, because we know how quickly that goes into the limbic system, how it goes into our memory systems. That smell will come back very quickly when I smell a chemical like I have just experienced. But having a replacement smell, which is what they've done to disguise the typical smells, but it gives you another one. And I know that chemical smell would have been incredibly overpowering for some. You're walking like meters away, and the smells are quite significantly overpowering. So it really would be, get a tissue, make sure that you have that almost immersed in a smell that you are comfortable with and that you can place over your nose. That's one of the biggest things for smell. And also you can get little nose clips. I have those on the Amazon site, on my website, where you can go and look through. There's an olfactory section, there's a smell section, and you can go through and you can find these helpful things to help with smells, but never underestimate. It's like we have ear defenders for our ears to kind of, because we can't clip, got nothing to clip our ears to stop them from taking sound in, because they are open all the time. So in the same way that nose clips will become more and more frequently used, I think the more people are aware that they are out there to actually stop. And you just breathe through your mouth, which obviously reduces the detail of the smell hugely.
Detail of the smell. Breathe. I like that.
and visually it's just like, oh my word. I would take, for people who really would be disturbed, it would be having your own little sheet of paper that you just place over everything before it's your turn to go. You still have to be able to deal with it in the first place, and that's people will know whether it's right or not, and then they will have their own portaloos if they know that they are not going to be able to cope with the sights, the sounds, the smells of commercially provided portaloos. There are personal ones that you can take around with you, like a potty, for want of a better word. But that's exactly what some people will need to do, because there are some people who will also who won't use public toilets. And there are loads of different things, the sights and the sounds and the smells and the heights to consider for using public toilets. They'll only go to the toilets in their own house, or they won't go to toilets at school, but they'll only toilet when they go home. So toileting is a massive one, actually. It's a really big topic.
I think we needed to go there, really. But I was thinking, like ear defenders have become more normalized now, so you will see that more normally. But actually, face masks through COVID, people got used to seeing face masks. So just thinking about what you were saying there, a drop of tea tree oil, for example, on a face mask on your face. Because I remembered that I'm reading about this when I was at school in history lessons. Walking down the central streets of London was terrible because there was no sewage. It was just, in the streets. So how do you deal with that smell? Well, they'd use perfume. Or they'd have like handkerchief with something on it, effectively an essential oil, I suppose we call it today, probably, but just a stronger smell, like a perfume. And actually, that would then override the other smell, the regular smell, as you called it, the typical smell. So yeah, there are things we can do, but again, festivals, it may not be for you. You might think, well, I want to go. Why can't they have it quiet? It's not going to happen. But I think so often we think about, okay, somebody can't cope. How do we help with that? But there's a different bracket, which you mentioned quite frequently, people who like to have more, not less, of sensory input. And actually for them, the festival, it's like Christmas Day.
Yeah. Yeah. Christmas Day, as often as they can get it. It's just like, where? And they'll travel. They'll go from one to the other, to the other, to the other. Yeah.
Sensory health, toileting at a festival. That's what we've been talking about today, amongst other things. Thank you, Anne. It was a pleasure to meet you and two of your sons over the weekend. It was brilliant. And it was great. Some really good experiences. I'm still processing what's going on, what happened. I've never really done festivals. I don't think I am a festival person, but I enjoyed being slightly more peripheral, like being, 50 to 100 foot away from LZ7, not 20 foot. I wasn't going to get a free t-shirt thrown at me, but I was okay and accepted that because I'm a bit further away, but I still got to enjoy what I wanted to enjoy because I like the bass and I like him a lot. Lynn's from LZ7. So yeah, it was great to be just a little bit removed because I love live music, but I didn't want to be too near the front.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, I think I walked past, didn't know who it was, who they were, how it's really apologies for those who were on the stage, but I remember hearing this guy saying, "This is a rave. We do not need drugs. We do not need drink. We are just using our bodies." Just his message was just absolutely phenomenal. So well done, that man, whoever he is. It's just like, I really appreciated that as I walked past at a distance, because it was just like I could feel everything within me just getting a nice little shake up on the inside. From the beats that were going on. But yeah, amazing.
He's a lovely, lovely man. I met him last year. He's great guy, and I love his heart and passion for what he does. But yeah, music. LZ7, if you haven't, we play it quite a bit here on the station, so check it out. Very much worth looking at him, supporting what he does. Right, Anne Laure Jackson, thank you. If you've got any questions, maybe post-festival toileting stuff that you want to ask us about, you can do. Other topics available too. Email us hello@pure247radio.org, hello@pure247radio.org. And if you want to find out more about Anne Laure Jackson, how she can help you as a sensory specialist occupational therapist, you can find that link best, pure247radio.org/ALJ. Anne Laure Jackson, thank you.
Oh, and thank you. And it was just wonderful to spend time with you and the family and be there and share that experience with you. So thank you.
'Twas fab. Thank you. Bye for now.
Pure 24/7 Radio is listener supported, which means we are free, online and always pure because of the generous support of our listeners. If you would like to contribute financially, please visit pure247radio.org. If you'd like to find out how we use your money, please visit the Our Cost section. Any donation of any size will help keep us on air and broadcasting for free. Thank you.